A reading from the letter of St. James. Do not complain, brothers and sisters, about one another, that you may not be judged. Behold, the judge is standing before the gates. Take as an example of hardship and patience, brothers and sisters, the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. Indeed, we call blessed those who have persevered. You have heard of the perseverance of Job, and you have seen the purpose of the Lord, because the Lord is compassionate and merciful. But above all, my brothers and sisters, do not swear, either by heaven or by earth, or with any other oath. But let your yes mean yes, and your no mean no, that you may not incur condemnation. Verbum Domini. The Lord is kind and merciful. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all my being bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits.
The Lord is kind and merciful.
He pardons all your iniquities. He heals all your ills. He redeems your life from destruction. He crowns you with kindness and compassion.
The Lord is kind and merciful.
Merciful and gracious is the Lord, slow to anger and abounding in kindness. He will not always chide, nor does he keep his wrath forever.
The Lord is kind and merciful.
For as the heavens are high above the earth, so surpassing is his kindness towards those who fear him. As far as the east is from the west, so far has he put our transgressions from us.
The Lord is kind and merciful.
Consecrate us in the truth. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia.
Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Lectio Sancti Evangelii secundum Marcum.
Gloria tibi, Domine.
Jesus came into the district of Judea and across the Jordan. Again, crowds gathered around him, and as was his custom, he again taught them. The Pharisees approached him and asked, "Is it lawful for a husband to divorce his wife?" They were testing him. He said to them in reply, "What did Moses command you?" They replied, "Moses permitted a husband to write a bill of divorce and dismiss her." But Jesus told them, "Because of the hardness of your hearts, he wrote you this commandment. But from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, no human being must separate." In the house, the disciples again questioned Jesus about this. He said to them, "Whoever divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery against her. and if she divorces her husband and marries another, she commits adultery. Verbum Domini.
Nos tibi Christe.
The Holy Apostle St. James reminds us this morning of persevering, the importance of staying the course, keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus Christ the Lord. And we all need to remember this in any state of life where God has called us to. You know, God has called us to be holy, to love, to give of ourselves. That's what holiness is all about. And, you know, everyone needs the grace of perseverance, again, in any form of life we're in. You know, there are times when we face certain obstacles, and these obstacles, in a way, will kind of slow us down or get our eyes off the prize or the goal. And one of the greatest obstacles, though, whether we're married or single or, you know, in religious life or the priesthood, is ourselves. You know, it's me, myself, and I. You know, that the great spiritual writers would say that what limits or impedes us from ascending into the great heights of prayer and becoming united to God fully is our own selves, is our ego. So this is one thing we need to overcome. You know, and the response to that is charity, is love of God and love of neighbor. Today we hear about the Holy Sacrament of marriage. It's what Jesus is talking to us about as well. And persevering for those of us who are married. That can be quite challenging. There's always going to be issues and problems arising. You know, and this is just going to happen. It's just part of life. Everybody has to suffer. But often, a lot of the problems arise from marriage is because of ourselves. Again, going back to me, myself, and I. It's sometimes becoming selfish. And one of the greatest problems in marriage is communicating. And why has this become so difficult? Because we become stubborn. And again, we can be very self-focused. And, you know, Jesus, you know, the problems can intensify so much that we can kind of get to the point where we just want to walk out of it. Because it's too hard, too difficult. You know, they're not doing for me. The spouse, what's wrong with them? You know, he comes home from work, sits down, watches TV. You know, or this wife, she's always nagging, always complaining. You know, always bringing out my faults, embarrassing me, you know, all sorts of things as an example. But as I said, communicating, good communication is always necessary. And, you know, sometimes in a married couples, they want all the acknowledgement. One spouse will want all the, and so maybe that's what you deserve too, you know. In husband, wife, say perhaps the husband's off there working, you know, 8 hours, 10 hours a day. You know, there's a lot of stress, pressure involved, you know, a lot of energy consumed in work. He comes home and would like a little respect, a little attention. It's not always there. Well, on the other hand, the wife, maybe she's working a part-time job or a full-time job, you know, taking care of the kids all day long. And you know, she's consumed with, well, you know, the responsibilities, bills, and things like that. And she was taking care of the kids, you know, kids, especially if they're little, they can take a lot of energy out of us. And, you know, so she's tired too, preparing dinner, all of these things, doing other kinds of preparations, cleaning and all of that stuff. And she may want some acknowledgement too and say, well, hey, you know what, I've been home doing all this stuff, and what about me? You know, and so there's where like a communication could really break down, is that we all want attention. We all want some kind of acknowledging. And we need to do that to each other. See, because then if there's no good communication, then a wall begins up there. You know, then, you know, there's arguing and fighting and bickering. But remember, in a marriage, when we come into a marriage, it's first and foremost, you know, as the church teaches, it's about the kids, about bringing new life into the world, you know, about permanence. This is forever. This is the fidelity and the good of the spouse. That's what this is all about. This is the good for one another. So we come into a marriage, and it's not so that we can be served, so we can be held up high, but it's for us to give to the spouse, a mutual giving to each other. And then when we lose sight of that, though, you know, then that's when the problems arise. So husband lives for wife, wife lives for husband. You know, it's that's the way it should be. But then when that doesn't happen, then the issues can become very intense. So a lot of times it's just about sitting down and talking it out. There's can be a little renewal there, you know, taking it to prayer and going from there. Now, of course, if there's a marriage where there is constant, where there is abuse and all of that, of course, you know, you need to get out of there right away. You know, Jesus is speaking to us about divorce, that divorce shouldn't happen. Okay, and you know, the Pharisees bring up, well, what about Moses and the law of Moses? Well, Jesus now is saying, well, let's go back to the original plan. This is what God intended marriage to be like. And he's saying basically it was because Moses proposes because of your own hardness of heart, your own stubbornness and all that. But now I'm here. Now I'm about to give you myself. I'm about to give you grace through the work of the Holy Spirit. So now, like, we will receive through grace divine life and divine love to help us live out our call faithfully. So Jesus puts that away now, the law of Moses, and says, now we're living by this is a new covenant promises. It's a time of grace, a time of sharing deeper in the life and love of Jesus Christ. And marriage, the sacrament of marriage, is a source of grace. It brings grace out of us. But we need to cooperate with God and with His grace. So this is why here, and then again, we think about, well, you know, as I was saying earlier, one of the great obstacles, if it's even in a marriage or even single, is about ourselves here. You know, we can become too selfish, too self-absorbed. It's always my way, what I want. As I said earlier, you know, in marriage we live for each other. And sometimes one of the greatest distractions in that could be we're consumed with our own self, our own beauty, our own good looks and things like that. You know, our own vanity, of course. And what kind of fuels that a little bit is maybe too much social media. You know, I do the social media for the communities. I see things, what's happening here, and what goes on out there. And sometimes, you know, whether a husband or wife, you know, their page is all about them. Hey, you know, every day. Hey, you know, they're taking a picture of themselves, then talking about themselves and going on and on and on about what they think and this and that. And you know, this will destroy a marriage because it's what it is. It's making us more selfish. And you know, I mean, social media, those are good things. You stay informed with your friends and all of that. You communicate. It's a way of communicating. But we don't have to be so selfish in it. Now, some of the more healthier profiles of good Catholic Christians, you know, yeah, every once in a while they'll say what they're doing and all this. Oh yeah, look at here, I'm I'm on vacation here and all that with the family, but a lot of times it's about what's going on with the kids. You know what, oh yeah, we're at the baseball game. You know, they're showing the kids playing baseball or something, or they're at the dance contest or whatever like that. And, you know, they're highlighting the kids. It's not just all about themselves or what their husband doing, or a husband, what their wife's going on and all that. This is very proud. This means it's looking at the good of others. Yeah. But, you know, even though overcoming selfishness, even though building good communication, we're still going to have issues. There's still going to be some hard times. But like in anything, we keep our eyes on Jesus, on the Lord. That's where it starts. If we get too focused on the problem, or we get too discouraged about it and start to become too self-absorbed in those things, we're not looking at Jesus. And if we're not looking at Jesus, we forget about what St. James tells us. He says, the Lord is kind, is compassionate and merciful. We forget about that. And that in God's compassion and His mercy, that He knows what we're going through. That, you know, He sees that we're having some hard times. And then we could remember that He will not give us more than what we could handle. So this is what we need to do is keep our eyes on the Lord, knowing that the Lord will bring some good out of this. Saint James also tells us to look at, well, how God provided for other people. He specifically mentions today Job, and how Job endured these great trials, these great testings. And, you know, we in the church, we have the saints. We can look back in the lives of the saints and see what God has done for them. He always comes through. He will come through for us. But once again, we keep our eyes on Jesus Christ the Lord, and only on Him. That's the goal of our lives, is to be like Jesus Christ, is to love as He loves. And when we are consumed with that, you know, the problems aren't so difficult in life. It's not so challenging, because it's all about love now, and giving the love of Jesus Christ. He says, that's why Jesus says in Matthew chapter 11, He says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy burdened, and I will give you rest." He says, "Learn from me, for I am meek and gentle and humble of heart." See, when we're giving it to Him, when we're focused on Him, you know, it's about loving Him now. So it's not so heavy, it's not so burdensome, because we're consumed with love of the Lord and operating as He operates in love. And so the trials, they become bearable and not so burdensome. And so now, my brothers and sisters, whatever we're going through in our life, however heavy it is, give it to Jesus now. You know, give it to Him, and know that He is compassionate and merciful, and that He will not let us be tempted beyond or endure beyond more what we could handle. God bless you all.